daughters will wear sunscreen.
Yeah.
Every election, I go to the courthouse, I watch the returns come in.
I'll be at the cross-country banquet.
Huh?
I'll be at the cross-country banquet that night.
Larry will text you and update
Tell
you.
me. It's about 7.
Okay, we ready to get going? All right. I'm going to call the meeting to order. It's 4:30 p.m. We're at the Arvin Education Center. Today is Monday, October 16th, 2023. This is the regular scheduled monthly board meeting for the Board of Education. It's just earlier in the month because of fall break. First item, sir.
Yes, for the agenda, I have 2 supplemental items for the board that I'd like to add to this evening's agenda. Those 2 are, you have copies there in front of you. They are B3 and supplemental enclosure B3, and on the back side is supplemental enclosure B4. And what those are is for asking the board to approve for bids to be advertised for projects that we approved last month. The first one is B3, and that's for the STEM Labs or CTE space to be renovated and added to Oldham County Middle School and South Oldham Middle School. And B4 is the lighting package at OC High and North. So I'd like to share that with the board and ask for the board for that to be added to this evening's agenda for consent items.
Okay. Board members, any questions?
I would like to also add something to the agenda. I'd like to do an action item, please, a straight up and down vote on removing the attorney-client privilege from the meeting that Mr. Ferris requested with myself on 8/28/23 at approximately 15:30 hours.
Okay. We'll have to ask, but I think we have to talk about that in executive session. I don't know that we can talk about it.
As long as we can add it to the agenda when we come back out, I'm good with it.
Okay, we will discuss it in there, and if we need to add it, we can add it.
Thank you.
Yes. Any other items, board members? Okay, can I get a motion to approve the agenda made by Mrs. Sheffer, seconded by Mr. Dodson? All those in favor, and that's 5-0. Next is Pledge of Allegiance. If you all could please stand. Ms. Dalton, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight? Mr. Dodson, could you read the executive session language, please, sir?
Okay, consider executive session pursuant to KRS 61, Consider executive session pursuant to KRS 61-810, 1C to discuss litigation, preparation, or defense, the public disclosure of which would jeopardize the board's position. And KRS 61.810-1B, deliberations on the future acquisition or sale of real property by a public agency, but only when publicity would likely to affect the value of the specific piece of property to be acquired for public use or sold by the public agency.
Okay, can I get a motion to go into executive session, please? Made by Mrs. Clem, seconded by Mrs. Sheffer. All those in favor, and that's 5-0. What, you asked Lori, what time did we say? Student showcase, should we do? Okay. Okay.
East Oldham.
Middle School. Okay, we're back in from executive session. Is there any action out of executive session? No, okay. We are gonna skip a little bit around on our agenda. We're gonna do student showcase next. And I believe we have East Oldham Middle School here for our student showcase. So East Oldham, if you all will come up to the podium, please. Welcome.
Thanks. Thank you very much for having us here today. First of all, I want to introduce my students and tell you a little bit of background on them. So I have 3 students from my advanced geometry class at East Oldham. These are 7th and 8th graders who take high school level geometry. So we have 8th grader Phoenix Tang, 8th grader Bryce Kimry, and 7th grader Meryl Furnish. This year, as part of our initiative to do more project-based learning, I came across a video game project to assess my students' learning of the Geometric Transformations unit. We had introduced the unit through a video about Pixar and how they use transformations in all of their Pixar films. And I thought it would be really cool if we could somehow apply that. So I had a friend from another district who had come across this video game project, and she shared it with me, and I worked with our Gates coordinator at our school to modify it a little bit so that our students could create their own video games and video game manuals to express their knowledge of geometric transformations. So I'm going to let each one of them share with you a little bit about their game and what they got from this.
Hello, I'm Phoenix, I'm in 8th grade, and I feel like a lot of the times in everyday class, doing tests and quizzes all the time, it can get quite boring, and it doesn't really help you to apply your knowledge to like broader things that you may experience in real life. However, in this unit, we were able to apply what we learned in geometry to coding. And personally, I didn't really know much about coding, so it was a bit hard at first, but I found I actually really did enjoy the unit, and it helped me learn more about geometric transformations in general and applying them into like real situations. Like in my game, I designed it so that different keys on the keyboard would do different transformations, and it helped me to understand how that would be visually represented. And a lot of people did have a bit of struggles with the specific coding application, but I feel like it was definitely a big break from the typical quizzes in everyday school.
Hi, I'm Bryce, and I really enjoyed this project. So if you notice, my character is George, and he's, well, in the beginning, he was avoiding Jimmy. And so my objective of the game was to get to the green flag. And if you notice, when he hits the car, he reflects and then loses a life. And so the key is you can win even with 0 lives. So the keys invert when you get to the ceiling. So right about here, the keys will invert. And then you can still win because you have to hit the right key to lose. I found this project a lot easier than quizzes and tests because I was able to apply it to real world examples, and I enjoyed this because it was easier for me to learn this way.
Awesome, thank you.
Hi, I'm Meryl Furnish, and for my project, I decided to make the objective of the game to get the cat to the food truck, and then every time, like, either the cat touches the food truck or the food truck catches the cat, it'll send you to a different level, and the objective of it is to just give up because you're annoyed. So I personally thought that the project was better than doing a test because it was less stressful in my opinion, and it went over the course of a couple of days rather than just one class period. But I think the only cons were that some students did not understand how to do coding, but some students had an easier time. Like I know a lot of kids struggled because they've never used it before, but some kids had advantages because they've used this program before. So overall, I prefer it over tests.
So just to summarize, again, the students all really seemed to like it. Like they said, there were some students who struggled more. Personally, myself, I struggled because in the weeks leading up to this, I had to teach myself some coding, and I had never done that before, so that was way out of my comfort zone. But it was great to see the kids get creative. It was a much better way for them to show their knowledge by doing something like this. They were able to create manuals to go with their games so that people could actually play them and learn how to play them. I did go through and play all the games. I am not a gamer. I lost just about every game that I played. So that was fun, but they did a great job. It was really cool to see their creativity shine, and I was just glad they got the opportunity to do that.
Awesome, thank you all. Thank you so much. We're gonna jump to recognitions.
Students, you all from East and everyone at East, you all did a great job. Thank you. Next, I want our recognition for this evening is just got a couple of thoughts I want to share with you. We're going to October is National Principals Month. Each October, National Principals Month recognizes the essential role that principals play in making a school excellent. Principals set the academic tone for their schools, and it is their vision, dedication, and determination that provide the mobilizing force for achieving student success. Our principals are the bedrock of our educational community. They are not only administrators, but also mentors, advocates, and champions for our educational mission and support our teachers and our staff every day. They work tirelessly to create a positive school culture and bring our community together. During National Principals Month, we ask our entire community to join us in showing appreciation for their dedication and hard work. We are grateful for their unwavering commitment to our students' well-being and academic achievement of every student, and we want to thank them. They will not necessarily want to be in the spotlight, but I will call each of them up, and we have a gift for you, and Ms. Hunley will share that with you. It is for you to take home. It's a mug with our new logo, and just a way of us saying thank you. So when I call your name, please come forward, and then we'll give one big round of applause when everyone gets up here. Jessica Caston from Oldham County Preschool, Richard Parrott from Buckner Elementary, Dana Corson from Camden Station Elementary, Kristen Mornar, Centerfield Elementary, Beth Wallingford, Crestwood Elementary, Ryan Radosky, Goshen Elementary, David Fiorini, Harmony Elementary, Jen Crace, Kenwood Station Elementary, Heather Thomas, LaGrange Elementary, Kristen Wilson, Locust Grove Elementary. Slow down, Jason. That's also in my notes. Michelle Wilhite, East Oldham Middle School. Allison Steinecker, North Oldham Middle School. Tim Caldwell, Oldham County Middle School. Austin Hunsicker, South Oldham Middle School. Craig Wallace, North Oldham High School. Grant, Oldham County. Melissa Woosley, South Oldham High School. Matt Watkins, Arvin Education Center. Beth Carter, Buckner Alternative High School. Alvin McWilliams, or Mac. I haven't said, first time I've not said Mac. Oldham County Schools Art Center. And that is all of our principals. Please come forward. Please give them a big hand. Very appreciative of each of you. I know your hearts. and I know how hard you work every day. And so you need to just take a moment and just want you to really take this in and a show of appreciation for what you do every day for leading our system forward, because it takes the work you do every day that people don't know about and don't see to make the schools operate, for kids to be successful, for teachers and staff to have what they need. We really, really appreciate you. All right, so we're going to small test, get two rows. We're going to get one picture, 2 rows. Tim's in the back. 2 rows, tall in the front, tall folks in the back, short in the front, and we'll get a group photo.
Can't see us.
What?
Okay, next is our instructional session.
Yes, I'd like to call Dr. Smith to come forward and share with the board an update for our instructional session about iReady.
All right, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
As I go through this presentation, we're going to talk about the iReady platform and how some of the benefits that it offers us compared to what we've used in the past with the NWEA MAP assessment. I hear those cups getting taken out of their bags. If you have any questions during the presentation, please stop me and I'm happy to answer them as we go through each of these sections. The presentation is broken into 4 parts: the student experience, the parent experience, the teacher experience, and the district experience. Just to begin, we used the NWEA MAP portal for about 10 years, 10 to 11 years, to assess our students and really categorize them in terms of their performance levels. We looked at percentile rank, and over the course of each year, we would track their conditional growth, comparing our students to other kids in other districts and other schools across the country. When SB 9 passed in this previous legislative session, we had an opportunity to re-examine our diagnostic tools and ask teachers and principals and others, what is best, what is it that you need from the tools that we're using, and how could we do a better job to meet the needs of our kids and support them in classrooms? We looked at keeping the MAP assessment, we looked at the STAR assessment, which is from Renaissance Learning, and we looked at iReady. We did pilots with those, and we got a lot of feedback from different groups to see what would be the best fit for us. Our school system landed on iReady as the best tool, and I'll talk a little bit about what they saw and what we have found using this so far. So first, in the student experience. When a student logs into the iReady portal, what they're presented with is something that looks like this. On one side, you see teacher-assigned lessons, and on the other side, you see My Path. I was really pleased when I visited a middle school classroom recently. This was a 7th grade classroom. The teacher was meeting the standard, which was recognizing proportional relationships between quantities, and she had pre-assessed her students and realized that there was a little bit of misunderstanding in terms of how do we plot dots on a scatter plot chart. She pushed a lesson out to her class, and they spent 5 minutes revisiting something they had learned previously before she taught the lesson, so that the teacher was doing what we call just-in-time instruction. She understood where they were, one little confusion, some confusion that she knew, and then she could remediate that and immediately go into the grade level standard to teach the students what was queued up for that day. So the teacher assigned component of the student portal is a really high leverage tool that we've seen and we're excited to teach teachers how to use and to push forward. The My Path side comes out of the diagnostic assessment that kids take. So it's an adaptive test. They get a question right, they get a harder question, they get a question wrong, they get an easier one, they land at a certain level. What My Path gives them then are recommended lessons based on where they are at that grade level to continue to push their learning forward. Some of our families have used Lexia at home over the last year, MyPath meets the same requirements that Lexia is using to teach language arts. We had a couple of schools that had used portals like Dreambox to teach math. MyPath offers a math component so that kids both at home and also during certain times of the day can be given grade level instruction that pushes their learning forward. So an example, if I was looking at a sample vocabulary lesson, this was for a 5th grade student that was going to practice using context clues. They click on the lesson, they're taken to a text that's interactive where they can see pictures, they have the text that they're reading, and then what iReady wants to know is, does the student understand what is meant here in terms of the word head? So it's saying he often met with the head of the Texas Republic, and then it's asking, what does this word mean? Here's a clue, and it's assessing their learning as they're going through the MyPath experience. One other feature of iReady that we found really beneficial is that students can track their own progress as they make their way through the lessons that they complete. So in the screenshot that you see here in the My Progress section, the student can see the percentage that they received. Parents also can log in with their student and see the percentages and the performance of their child in the MyPath experience. Students also get to receive feedback on how many lessons they've passed, the number that they've completed in a certain period of time, the minutes on task, and it's a way of just incentivizing and reminding kids that we want to always be working hard and pushing our learning forward through this space. On the parent side, one thing that we have heard very clearly is that parents want to understand what are the tools that we're using and what can I learn about my students' experience on these online platforms. iReady has a space that's called the Family Center. Here you can see videos or download PDFs that explain how iReady works and explain what their child is working on in MyPath and in the lessons that they're doing in their classroom. It also will give them videos that will explain things like what is an adaptive assessment. So this is a screenshot I took from one of those videos that just explains to a parent who might not have ever heard of an adaptive assessment, what is it doing, how is it that my child landed at this overall score. It also has some tools for parents to use. This is for an elementary school family that would let them log in with their child and track their students' progress in reading and math as they make their way through a series of lessons. So we are partnered with parents and we want everyone working together to help kids learn at high levels, and this is a simple tool that a parent could use to help their child stay on track as they're working in the iReady portal. For teachers, the data that iReady is giving us, we heard really, really positive things from our pilot, from all of our schools. Every school piloted this. When a parent or when a teacher logs in, this is the first view that they see of their class. We've talked a lot about the 5 pillars of reading, and we've talked about the importance of teaching the fundamentals for children to read. Here you see each of the 5 pillars broken out in terms of a classroom's performance. So a teacher can see phonological awareness and which kids were above grade level, ready for grade level work, or below grade level, phonics, high frequency words, vocabulary development. Each of those areas are broken out. A few more clicks takes a teacher to a profile of their whole class, and here the teacher can sort by each of those different categories, and we whited out the names of the kids who would otherwise be on the left to know if I'm pulling a small group, this is a group of students that would benefit from some work around phonological awareness, for example. As the teacher gives assessments in the iReady portal, all of these assessments are aligned to standards. And this is one place where we saw a lot of work that saw some benefits we weren't seeing in the MAP platform. And that is, by aligning really carefully to standards, we can give teachers the tools that they need to teach to the standard and to support students who are struggling to master a standard. So here is just an overview of a class. This is a 5th grade class, and the 3 standards that were assessed you can see broken where it says 2 and 2A. The teacher can then look and see the specific questions that students struggled with. And I want to just be very clear, the names that you see on here are all fictitious names, and this comes out of the iReady platform, so we're not sharing any data around kids or kids' performance in school. So a teacher could sort and realize that a number of students struggled with question number 3. They could bring that question to the whole class and revisit it to do whole class reteaching, or they could pull individual students that struggled with specific questions in that assessment. Where that foundation goes to the next level is that iReady then takes all the data that it has and it breaks the students into groups based on their performance. So instead of a teacher taking the time to build each of the groups, iReady will recommend a group to the teacher and say, if we look here at group 2, these 10 kids fall into this level, and we'll go one level deeper. Within group 2, here are your students and here are the things that they were focusing on. And take it one step further, it'll then say to the teacher, in group 2, here is a lesson that you might consider teaching to your students. Now, I took some screenshots so you could see. So if I click on the lesson, it produces the lesson plan for the teacher and shows what they would have learned in 3rd grade, what they're learning now in 4th grade, and where this learning goes in 5th grade, along with the lesson objectives and some other tools that the teacher can use right away with the kids in their classroom. So what we heard from teachers was that this teacher toolkit was a really, really effective way to focus their work so they could get the most out of the time that they had with students while they're at school. iReady also has a number of supplemental assessments. So once I've given an assessment, I've retaught material, I can take a second assessment, assess the students again, and make sure that we're filling in all the holes that might be present in learning. From the district's perspective, we get to see information broken out in this way. So here you see 5 categories. The red with lines would be a student that's 3 or more grade levels behind their grade level peer group. The red itself would be 2 levels behind, and where you start in yellow, what iReady calls us is that you are ready for learning. So it's the fall, it's a diagnostic test. You're starting 4th grade. You have not learned 4th grade material yet, but being in the yellow range means you're ready to learn 4th grade material. For kids that fall into the green or green with stripes, that means you're either at or advanced beyond 4th grade. So you're above the grade level that you're about to be learning. And so it breaks down all the students in a school, or for us in a district, based on these categories. So let's take a look here in our reading overall placement. So what you see here is about 21% of students, this is K-10 data. The high school data that we were looking at is for students who are multiple grade levels behind, so those scores are going to fall into the red range because we're using this tool to do remediation for high school students that are not yet to a high school level. And then what this data then shows us is that we have about 79% of our students that are at or above grade level in reading. That's 8,122 students out of 11,900 that are loaded into the system should we want to use this. This is primarily for K-8 with also a focus on intervention in our high schools. Each high school has about 200 licenses for kids in their intervention program, specifically 9th and 10th grade. A breakdown by grade level shows us the data breaking out this way. So you can see in kindergarten, we wouldn't say that a student is below grade level in kindergarten. They're coming to school ready to either start kindergarten or to show us that they're above the kindergarten level. And then you can see the breakdown for our reading data here. We noticed when we were looking at these data that 3rd grade had a slight jump in our below grade level scores. Those were students who began their end of their preschool year with COVID and NTI. And they started kindergarten when we were working on masks and all the other things that were happening when the school year was very disrupted. They had a very strong year in 2nd grade, and this is them now beginning 3rd grade and where they start in 3rd grade this year. So you can see the overall performance. In our county, we have a number of students that are at or above grade level, and we have a lot to celebrate in this diagnostic data. When we get to December, we'll assess again, and then we'll assess again in the spring. For math, the breakdown looks like this. So we have approximately 80% of kids that are ready or above the grade level for their performance, and 19% that are below grade level, which would be students that are going to receive support through Tier 2 and Tier 3 intervention. And then here you can see our math data broken out in just the same format. Let me stop right there. What questions do you have?
I'll ask you guys now.
Sure.
For our 3rd, 4th, 5th graders, you showed the 3rd graders and talked about
For math or reading, or
reading,
both?
I'm sorry,
Oh, for reading, all right.
how we're behind. The phonemic awareness, since it don't cover 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, does it?
So
I believe it's K through 2.
primarily, we are teaching primarily kindergarten to 2nd grade is where we're teaching phonics and phonemic awareness. But as students land in 3rd grade or above, if they have an area that requires intervention, we have interventionists that can support them in that way.
So we're using the interventionists to catch our 3rd, 4th, 5th graders, since they're not going to be tested in it, correct?
They're not
I actually have my third graders right here.
Oh,
And
okay.
it does include the phonics. Oh, so we are. For third grade. I don't know about fourth grade, but I'm assuming
And
not.
I can get you that
Third
answer.
grade.
Go ahead.
Hey, Liz, can you come to the mic, please? Thank you.
So there's a couple different components of this. So typically, like a third grader, they would not get questions on phonemic awareness, but they would get vocabulary questions. And then depending on how they scored on those, they would then, if they scored low enough, ask them some phonics questions, which would then indicate whether or not they were at or below. The other thing is that there's the literacy tasks that if a student comes out as red or below grade level, that then we administer the literacy tasks to any student. And that also would indicate to us whether or not they have a phonemic awareness issue or a phonics issue. And then, of course, we would draft a plan for any child, kindergarten through third grade, that is reading below grade level, whether or not it's 2, 1, whatever, they would get a reading improvement plan with a reading improvement team.
What about grade 4 and 5?
Well, we would test those students as well, and the lowest kids would get intervention services, and then the teachers would differentiate. So, yeah, any kid who's reading below grade level is just not as formalized in kindergarten through third grade due to SB 9. We have to have a reading improvement plan for any kid below grade level.
I know once, and correct me if I'm wrong, since we're started, once our kindergartners make it through to 5th grade, then we got all the tools that'll catch them. But
We-
right now it's our 4th, 5th, that's.
We still have tools for them. Like we don't reserve those just for the kindergarten through third graders, right? Like if we have a 4th or a 5th grader who needs phonics instruction, we are able to get them phonics instruction. We have multiple interventionists, or depending on if they have an IEP, that are trained in a multitude of resources.
Yeah, I'm not talking the help. I understand we give them the help, but we're using iReady as a tool to identify too, correct?
It's the first layer to tell us whether or not that there's a problem. But then any student who comes out as red, then we administer the literacy benchmark tasks too, and that gives us it's a diagnostic that gives us more information.
And then I'm always going to ask this question. Are we using the dyslexia option with the already? Do they have a separate?
The dyslexia screener is embedded into the iReady diagnostic. Yes, the literacy benchmarks tasks is part of that.
And how do we compare these results to the math testing, or do we? Is there a way to compare it, or are they totally different?
We can look at the students, we can look at the percentile ranks to see a student's performance, and we can compare percentile ranks. What iReady does not have that Matt used to have, or when we used it, was RIT score, but for us, percentile rank allows us to do the same thing.
So MAP is a criterion reference test. Well, it's both, because you, MAP, iReady is criterion and norm referenced, yes, sorry. And so you are able to look at criteria, how a student is performing based on standards and the national percentile on iReady. So it does both things, where MAP used to not, you couldn't do that.
All right, good deal.
So iReady, the first indicator, there might be a dyslexia diagnosis for K through 2nd, right?
Well,
That's what you said.
we don't, the state of Kentucky doesn't qualify students like as dyslexic. You can have a specific learning disability in reading. Dyslexia is one of those,
Okay.
right? But it's not like iReady sends us like a flashing light, this kid has dyslexia. What happens is we give the benchmark tasks, and we can see what specific issues a child has in reading, and then we have multiple resources or programs that we can use
So it
to
could
support a
pick up on
student.
it. And then children in third and fourth, how are we picking up on them having that sort of?
They get the benchmark. Any child that's below grade level, even if they're in 5th grade, we give the benchmark tasks too, the literacy tasks.
Can you, what is that?
Well, there's a couple different ones. So one would be a fluency passages. So they would get a grade level passage, and a teacher would read, and they get 2 of those, and they average. And so depending on how many words correct per minute, then that can kind of indicate not that they have dyslexia, but that there might be a problem, right? If they can't fluently read a grade level passage, that's important information for a teacher. There's others on, like in kindergarten, it would be, there's like letter naming fluency. I'm trying to think off the top of my head what they all are. One is, rapid word naming, I think. And so then there's some also decoding, like they know all the sounds. And so there's about, if I had the sheet in front of me, I could tell you all of them, but
Sure.
And those have to be administered individually between the teacher and the student. It's not computerized. So that's where our teachers are administering those to the kids.
Right. I love it, the K through 2, but I just worry about the kids who didn't have access to this at the earlier ages, just getting lost in the shuffle a little bit, but they're protected.
I don't believe that they are getting lost. I think we are catching them all.
Great.
There's even a phonics component even for 5th grade because, and I know it should say tested out, but they must be, like you said, having some kind of benchmark because even the 5th graders have the category of phonics, high frequency words. So they must be asking something to get the tested out.
And it says tested out.
Well,
Or
but
grade 5.
except for the tested out can be a little bit misleading, that sometimes they put tested out, which in some situations they were not tested. So we've actually, iReady is going to change their language on that.
Okay.
Thanks.
So how do the parents, you mentioned the parents can log in. How can we do that?
So if you log in to Clever with your student's email address and password, when you're in the Clever portal that students can access, just like you would have a student working on a Chromebook or a computer at home, when you've logged into Clever with your student's email address and password and then click on iReady, you'll be taken to the student portal. And as you saw here in the presentation in the top corner of the screen, and I'll show you right. Let me get to the student experience. See where it says Family Center in the top right? They can click on Family Center and they can be taken right to that. Family Center is also a publicly facing portal. If you don't want to log in using these credentials, you can reach it just as easily.
Is there, I think this is great, and the feedback that I've gotten from teachers has been wonderful. I've even talked to teachers that have, at their old facilities, have used this and have loved it for a long time.
Yeah.
I found the way that it was presented, like what was sent home, was kind of confusing. And so when I sat down with one of our teachers and she showed me there was actually a teacher report, that was so much easier to kind of interpret as just as a parent. So I don't know if we can maybe look at this almost seemed kind of complicated. I loved all the information that was in it, but it was a little bit hard for me to interpret exactly where my child landed.
So each month we have all of our assistant principals come together for a cohort meeting. Often they are printing and producing the material that we send home. So I will bring up the teacher report in our next meeting and see if that might be an easy way to share what we're learning about student performance for the next administration.
It just seemed almost like a simpler version
Yeah.
for parents to look at.
As simple as we can make it, I think is really the key.
And then on I know this was the first time we were doing it, so
Yeah.
the next report that we get after the testing in December, will that show September and December together, kind of like the MAP testing did?
Yeah, it
Okay.
should show us it should show growth between the two
Okay.
administrations. And then you should be able to see side by side how a student did in the fall and how they're doing in the winter.
Perfect.
Is the middle school bringing them home too?
It depends on, so yes, we are going to try and produce the reports and share that for K-8.
Okay.
I do not know if they have sent them home yet.
Okay. So could they be emailed instead of sent home, possibly? Not so.
I don't think so.
No?
I think that it's really something you print. You print, and then whether it's getting it from the AP to the homeroom teacher to the child's backpack to your hands.
Which
That
is a
is
long
for
process.
handoffs, and we will work on getting that to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Very good. Thank you.
Next,
Yep.
treasurer's report.
Yeah, Dr. Shelton, if you'd come forward and give the board a treasurer's report, and Dr. Smith, Ms. Dant, thank you.
Good evening. This is the treasurer's report for the month of September, and what I like to always say when I talk about the month of September is it's the lowest cash flow of the school year. And so when you look at it, you'll see the lowest balances that you'll normally see as we complete the first quarter of the year and the first full month of school. And so obviously our expenditures are considerably higher than our receipts. You'll start to see that transition and change in October, and of course it'll heavily change from November through February when we start getting our tax receipts in. With that being said, you can see in our governmental funds, we still of course receive our state seat funds, the utility taxes, and our monthly motor vehicles receipts. So we had receipts just right at 7.7 million against disbursements of 21.4 million. So cash is down considerably, as I mentioned, as it normally is at this time of year. Below the cash account breakdown, you have the breakdown of our bonded construction funds and then our investment account. I wanted to make note on our investment account that next month you'll see a substantial reduction in that because of the payment that you all authorized for the stipend that has just paid at the end of September.
What was the increase fourfold on that?
The increase on what?
The investments. I mean, it's like 4 times what it was the previous year at this time.
Well, that investment account used to be at 20 million, and then it had been lowered once. You're talking about the 17.5 million in the investment account? I want to make sure I'm answering.
I'm talking about the interest on investments, where it went last year from 100,000 to 401,000.
Yeah, we had most of that is a market change that gets recorded as investment income, so it's the market value change of the investment. So as the market it changed on the particular type of investment we had, we record that, and that's only recorded at the end when we get the report from the bank.
But all right, thank you.
Mm-hmm. I did want to mention in the stipend payment that you all authorized, we had estimated that would be between $2.3 and $2.4 million total, and the final total is $2,332,500. So you may have to fire me for being off about $7,000 on that number. So sorry, just little trying to be a little funny there. But we were very, very close on that estimate, and we'll still appreciate you all doing that very much for our employees. You have, of course, the normal reports that follow there in the breakdown of the cash accounts. On report number 3, on the historical analysis, it's still very difficult to look at that report and make any sense of it because we haven't started receiving all of our tax receipts. And again, we're at a low cash flow point of the year. Although our salaries are starting to pick up and be at normal levels based on our budget, but the revenue accounts will start to really increase. I would point out, of course, in capital outlay and building fund receipts, we receive 50% of our capital outlay funds at the beginning of the fiscal year and 50% at the end of the fiscal year. And then in the building fund revenues, the equalization on our 4 nickels, we similarly receive 50% at the beginning of the year and 50% at the end. Again, no real highlights to point out on the revenue or expense trends, but I would ask if there's any questions that you might have on anything in the report.
Board members? Okay.
Ms. Hunley, if I can make one comment, just with the, Dr. Shelton, thank you for this report. Board members may come back next month or, and ask you all to consider an incentive perhaps of what we can do getting ready for second semester. As we wind down this first semester, we have students who are in college who are considering getting done in December and are looking for positions. So we might ask you all to present something for consideration like we did at the beginning of the year. I'm working on just sharing with you all what that might be, just to take under advisement.
Okay. Do you have a motion, sir?
Yes, I recommend to approve.
Can I get a motion to approve the treasurer's report made by Mrs. Sheffer, seconded by Mr. Dodson? All those in favor? And that's 5-0. Next up, we've got one set of meeting minutes to approve. They're from the September 25th board meeting. Board members, do you have any changes or amendments to that? Okay, can I get a motion to approve the minutes? Made by Mrs. Clem, seconded by Mrs. Sheffer. All those in favor, and that's 5-0. Next, sir.
Yes, personnel report as presented in your packet.
Board members, any questions?
No, but I do want to say thank you to Mr. Ford that's retiring after 31 years. He's an amazing teacher. All the kids love him and everything he always did in the classroom. So he'll be missed from Oldham County Middle School.
Thanks. All right, sir, consent items?
Yes, consent items recommend to approve as presented.
Board members, any questions?
I got one. Since there's no
Consent.
facility report, on 9B, I don't know if it's a place for it. What I would like to see is every month a report on where the art center stands. You know, what have they done this month? What they got confused here, because a lot of people's asking questions. We got it approved, but where does it stand? And I just like to see this group met here, this group met here, where it stands, so people have an understanding that it's not sitting there, they're still working on it.
So, Mr. Dodson, I appreciate that question. Currently, our rhythm is every other month we present an update, a facility or construction update to the board every other month. So November would be the time that we would plan to do that. If you want anything specific, we can certainly address that.
Well, with that report would be fine.
Okay.
Just so we can address it.
Sure, absolutely.
Board members, other questions on consent items?
Can we talk about F1? Are we eliminating 2 positions
No.
to create 1 spot?
No, sir. So first, there are 2 positions. One is to increase a position that is funded at 0.7 to 1.0, so a full-time FTE. So currently it's 0.7, so we're asking that we would increase that to 1 full-time position as outlined in your packet. And then the second position, as I noted, shared with you all that we've had retirements and our benefits coordinator, we just hired a new benefits coordinator, and we also anticipate other retirements from our staff that work in HR and finance over the next couple of years. So this position is a new position to be able, and it's outlined, I think, at 110 or 112 on the unified classified salary schedule. So that position is to work with both HR and finance to help with tracking and accounting kinds of things of new employees across the district, so that way we can be very beneficial. I think the other point I really want to highlight is as we have folks in those positions who have been in those positions 20 plus years. So there's a lot of institutional knowledge that is going whenever they retire, and this is we won't need to do this every time someone retires, but there are a couple of places where we'll need to hire someone rather than being a month before, perhaps 6 months before. So if Mr. Dees can help answer any specific questions, I think if there's any, but I appreciate the question.
So when someone retires, then we will not fill that spot, basically what you're saying.
Yeah, I can't, it depends. Thank you, Mr. Dees.
So we currently have 3 payroll clerks, 2 that do one, and one that has a little bit more responsibility in her position, but there's 3 what we call traditional payroll clerks plus 1 with extra responsibilities. One of those we know is going to retire in December. We also had the retirement of the employee benefits coordinator just 2 months ago, and we hired a new person for that piece. So between those 2 experiences and trying to tweak what we're trying to do and make HR and payroll work better together with accruals and doing accruals and leaves and in and outs and payroll, plus we know that we'll have some changes within the next year, year and a half, 2 years of CFO positions and so forth. We're trying to build some institutional knowledge and understanding with some people because we're going to have 2 to 3 retirements in the next 6 to 12 months on those positions. So we know there's going to be a lot of turnover in those 2 departments. So we're trying to get them ready to go in the meantime, just to, without saying names.
So
it's a totally new position for
it's a new position.
the payroll clerk / HR is a new position we've never had before.
Correct.
And we're paying them at a 110, which
It'll be
is
a-
above an office manager.
But different than what the payroll clerks are currently.
Then, this may be a dumb question, but we only ask for a high school degree instead of trying to get someone with a business degree or something on that nature.
Yeah, so if we can get one with that, that'd be great. And we're going to cast a large net and hopefully try to catch and land somebody. But when we went through and ran it through our MAG program, they look at risk, liability, risk to the district. They look at overall, do you make decisions on your own or are you just processing? And so different ones have different levels within that MAG survey study that we do. So you give it to the current employees, you give it to the supervisor, they rate them, then the supervisor rates them, and then you come back with a number and we say, where does it fall? And that kind of is that balance piece of where do you put them in that hierarchy of scale 104 to 119.
All right, thank you.
Board members, any other questions? Okay, motion to approve the consent items, made by Mr. Dodson, seconded by Mrs. Clem. All those in favor? That's 4 votes. All those opposed? And that's 1. So it passes 4 to 1. Okay. Next, sir, your superintendent reports.
Yes, I'd like to invite the Education Foundation to come forward and share a report. OSEF provides the board an update each year.
Thank you.
And Ms. Arterburn, thank you for being here. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you all very much for having me. My name is Susan Arterburn. I'm the past president for OSEF, the Oldham County Education Foundation. So what we're looking at today is the 2022-2023 annual report. So we've already got started on the 23-24 work, so we're just going to do a little bit of a reflection back. Just on the front of it, the mission, I think, is very important for us just to always remember who we are and why we're here. The OSEF group board, our mission is to elevate the public educational experience for Oldham County Schools students by filling the funding gap between the available resources and the current need. That's a pretty broad statement. We worked very hard to kind of focus that in and really talk about what it is we do. So this annual report kind of adds some light to how we're able to do that. The letter from the president, I looked back and was trying to just reflect on how could I sort of summarize the 22-23 fundraising year for us? And really, I felt like we were just continuing what had been laid down as a foundation for years before. And not to put words in the current president's mouth, but really, that's just what we're looking to continue to do. Is we've built something really great. The people who came before us have built something really great, and we're just trying to keep that going for the students and find little ways to tweak and adjust as we go. One of the things that you'll see on the next page is just a list of the board members. We've got community members from all walks of life. What we try to look for in board members is folks who have a direct tie to the district, but are not employed by the district. So we do want community members, business leaders, parents to be a part of the board. I did put a note in here about our strategic planning, the buildup that we've been doing. We have 3 key goals in our strategic plan. You guys are well aware of how a strategic plan works. I know Dr. Radford has shared quite a bit of that with us as well. But number 1, we're looking to increase awareness of OSEF. Even though OSEF has been around for 30 years, we get lots of, I've never heard of you. I don't know what you are. I don't know what you do. So that's really a push that we started last year, and one that is really going to grow, and hopefully you guys will see an impact of that in the 23-24. But we know that when we increase awareness of OSEF, that should increase revenue and donations to OSEF, which then leads into our 3rd goal, which would be to increase the gifts that we can directly give back to the schools. So that is really at the foundation of what we're working toward, and every one of the initiatives that we bring up, we've got a fantastic strategic planning committee chairman, Clint Cahoe, who is just wonderful at bringing us back to strategic planning and always pushing us to make sure we're following that. Some of the events that we did this year to try to gain a little bit of awareness, we were able to do some really fun things with UDEL. There's some pictures here from the time that we went to Boudel at UDEL, and then we also were able to decorate a Christmas tree for their Yuletide event. So there's some pictures there of when we were able to reach out to the community and kind of spread our name out there. But the big deal that for us is just bringing in the money. So we did host some pretty fantastic fundraising events. The first one that you'll see here is called Send Your Love. It's just a fantastic event. This is maybe the 3rd big year that I've been a part of it, and it does just keep growing and growing. We sold out of over 1,200 gifts that were given directly to teachers and staff all across the district. These are not gifts from parents to students. These are gifts from parents to teachers and staff and board members. I think some went to the central office even. So that was just fantastic. And through that initiative, we raised over $5,000 to go back. And that money pretty much directly goes into Pyramid Awards. So I'll share more about Pyramid Awards in just a minute. We did host a bracket barbecue in this very room, and this one was a fun one. We had David Padgett come in, and he was our bracketologist and kind of walked us through the NCAA bracket and maybe some of his guesses that were maybe not the best, maybe better than someone that I would have made, but anyway, it was a lot of fun. Very well attended program, and we had over $4,300 net back into the OSEF that we could get back to the schools. The limo ride raffles were a really fun success last year. We were able to do it twice. We expanded. So we did an end of the school year and then a back to school limo ride. And so those 2 events together with the sponsorships from the community members and the businesses, we were able to raise over $7,000 in raffle ticket sales to go right back into Oldham County schools. And the pictures from the students and their friends that got to ride on a limo or ride in a limo was kind of fun too. We partnered with Main Event to send them not only on a limo ride, but to go have some fun. And then one of them we also, both of these were through Main Event. We had a Harmony Elementary and then a South Oldham Middle School group who got selected for those. So because of those fundraising efforts, those are kind of dual purpose, gets our name in the community and also raises some money. A lot of the work, though, a lot of the dollars that you see flow through OSEF don't come through fundraising. A lot of that work comes from grants, which we really have Heather Peters 1,000% to thank for that. So Heather, thank you so much. Her work is just phenomenal, not only in the amount of work that she does, but the dollar figure that she's able to come and bring through OSEF that goes straight back into the community, or excuse me, from the grants straight back into the school system. So Heather has put together, she helped me write this, she wrote it. Really, she wrote it. But the grant-funded projects for the 22-23 school year, you can see here, we've got Metro United Way, Peyton Samuel Head Trust Grant. And I know just from hearing Heather report on those, yes, there's a lot of work that goes into writing the grant, but she's also maintaining a relationship with these organizations so that when the grants come through, they understand who we are and what we do. So again, just above and beyond probably what anyone would ever ask her to do that she does to help OSEF and to help the schools. A lot of detail there, and I would probably not do it justice, but if there are questions about grants specifically, I really would point you all to Heather for that. Okay. There is a note here at the bottom how we were able to use some of these funds. So our continued giving, one of our biggest give backs in addition to the Pyramid Awards was being able to help fund Care Solace. Dr. Radford came to us and shared some information, and as a board, OSEF decided that we wanted to take the money that we had left at the end of our fiscal year, plus also borrow a little against our next fiscal year to make a round $20,000 donation to help fund the Care Solace program in partnership with the health department. So that was a really pleasant, nice way for us to help support the schools, the teachers, the families, all in the community through not only the grants, but really the fundraising efforts that go to that as well. The Pyramid Awards, as always, for 30 years have been our keystone. This year we set a record, $46,545.12 was given to 43 Pyramid Award winners across the district. One thing to note here, we were able to go from the standard $1,000 gift up to a not that high, $1,250 gift. Not everyone asked for that much, but that was the cap that they could receive with one Pyramid Award. We also were able to set up last year and continue to fund in this coming year what we're calling an extracurricular scholarship. So we've earmarked this in our budget for $2,500 that any student across the district that wants to participate in a school-sponsored extracurricular event but might not have the money to pay the extra $20 fee or the $50 fee or the $100 fee or whatever it might be, if a counselor or a teacher or administrator knows of students who want to participate and are held back financially, we've got a fund for that. This is an area where I wish the principals were all still here, because this is another area where I hear so often, oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know we had that. Just today I was at my kids' school and I was talking with their librarian, the library media specialist, and she's got a book club. I said, hey, Abby, if anybody wants to be in this book club and you think that maybe buying the books is a little bit too much for them, did you know? And she goes, no, I didn't know. So she is now aware and she's going to spread the word. So I'm really excited that we have this, because we just imagine it's going to grow and grow and grow. An extra note at the end, while part of our strategic plan moving forward is to revamp some of our data management, we are looking at a better way to recognize our donors. So while I wish, maybe more than anything, I could stand here and read you a list of the over probably 1,000 people who have directly donated or interacted with OSEF, unfortunately, I'm not able to do that. But what I can tell you is that when I look through the records we have, in just this last fiscal year alone, there were over 300 individuals and businesses who donated over over $100, and many of them, a large chunk of them, gave over $1,000. So the businesses in the community, the parents, the family members, just community members are really rallying around, whether it's an event, whether it's a fundraiser, whether it's a sponsorship, but we're getting that momentum, we're seeing the awareness, we're seeing the giving, and I'm really excited to be a part of that. and hope to see it grow. The last page that you guys have is just a general overview. The income totaled $152,517.50. Our expenses was $162,429.69. So net operating income as a nonprofit, negative $99,1219, and that reflects some of the additional dollars that we chose to kind of borrow from what we anticipate to come in this year to fund what we were able to do last year. So,
Board members, any questions? Susan, thank you so much for this report, and thank you, OSA, for all that you do for the teachers and staff in our schools every year. I know the Pyramid Awards have been around forever, and just the excitement when those were handed out, and it's just a real game changer for our teachers to be able to bring in some of the cool extra kind of things that our kids all run home and talk about that happened. And thank you, OSEF, and thanks, Susan, and thank you, Heather, for all of your hard work.
Thank you.
all right, thank you all.
Thank you.
Right, next, sir.
Yes, I'd like to invite Mr. Michael Williams to come forward and to share with the board about school projections.
Good evening. So before I begin, I do need to make one correction. In the paragraph underneath my little grid, in all of my number changing and looking at all the different numbers, on your copy it says increasing. It actually should say decreasing in that second to last sentence. So with that being said and corrected now, we look at enrollment projections every year about this time. They have gone on for longer than I have been in the district. I inherited them 26 and a half years ago, basically. So looking at that, when we look at enrollment projections, we look at the end of the first month. And at the end of the first month this year, we had 11,950 students, not including our preschool students. Okay, that number is 245 fewer than we had last year at the end of the first month. Okay, when you add the preschool students in, we have 12,140. And my notes in there are always, that you look at what it's important for. It's important for budgeting. It's important for staffing. It's also important for us for facility planning. When I looked at the accuracy of the projections for the 2023-2024 school year, the most accurate projection was the 3-year school specific. And so that one does not take into account all the extra data that the other 3 do. It looks more at the rate of survival in those schools. And so it was the most accurate at 101.09% accuracy, which means I overprojected. And we overprojected on all of them this current school year. So when we look at that, you see that the least accurate was the 5-year district projection. And so looking from that and then taking that and using those numbers as we moved forward, looking at that with this for the coming year, so as it breaks down, so for next year, the 3-year school-specific projections would state that we have 11,763 students. That's a decrease of 187 students. Okay, we have seen a decrease over the last 4 years. So all of these numbers are going down. Okay, the 3-year district trend would have us at 11,783, a loss of 167 students. 5-year would be at 11,809, a loss of 141 students. And the 10-year district trend would have us 11,881, or a loss of 69 students. So in the review of that data, I went back and looked at what had been the most accurate over the last 4 years. And it actually was the 3-year school-specific data trend. So with that being said, that is my recommendation to you all, that we plan from this point forward to have projected for the end of the first month next year 11,763 students, or a decrease of 187 students of where we were at the end of the first month this year. And I am more than happy to answer any questions that you have.
Board members, questions?
No. Michael, I do trust your math because in the past you've been right on top of everything.
I will say I felt a little bad this year that I missed it by almost 1.5% in some cases, when in years I've missed it by 100th or less. So it was a little
you're
weird
losing
this
your-
year for me going, oh wait, I missed it by, you know, a whole percentage point.
And board members, I think the trend that Mr. Williams has outlined will not be something that we continue to see. I think that it will shift as early as next year. And some of the things we're going to talk about later tonight and upcoming months, I think, can help illustrate how some actions that we can take, because we want to, you know, get back to the enrollment that we once had. This goes back to the 18-19 enrollment and what we were funded on, and we planned for that. And Mr. Williams, appreciate your diligence, and he's always on top of his reporting, so we appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Next, sir.
Yes, so in your board members, next up for superintendent report is legislative priorities. I'm really just going to highlight what's on that one slide that you have there in front of you. Received, and you all have asked many questions, and so working with my colleagues across the state and working with those within our region, these are the three things we really want to advocate for: is to fully fund transportation. What that means is we're currently at about 68%. If we get 100% funding, that is $2.6 million that would be credited to the general fund. The second legislative priority is to increase the SEEK-based funding per pupil by a minimum of $325 per student. That would give us a significant increase in our general fund, and I'll talk about that here in just a second, and to codify or make permanent fully fund all-day kindergarten. Currently, we receive all-day funding for all-day kindergarten. However, the legislature, the General Assembly, has not made that permanent funding. So, at the end of the last session, two years ago, when the General Assembly said we would fully fund all-day K, well, if they do that again, but they don't make permanent, that is just keeping our budget flat. That's not increasing revenues for our general fund. So we want to make that permanent. All in all, I'll just summarize that if we were to get fully fund transportation at $2.6 million, increase the general fund, the base SEEK at $325 per student, that would allow us to be able to further support our teachers. As you heard in SPDM reports last year and the 2 years that I've been here, going into year 3, about professional learning and resources, but it could also give us approximately a 7% salary increase for all staff in Oldham County. And so that's something that our board has asked about, and so our next steps after tonight would be to share that with everyone, and here is who to contact as we get ready to head into General Assembly and their session that will start after the new year.
This is something that we've been talking about for quite some time, and putting together simple language that not only parents, but teachers, staff, and community members can easily cut and paste into an email and contact legislators about making changes to our funding. So I think this is a great move towards making this simple for everyone to be able to reach out, let their voices be heard, and hopefully see a shift in some of the funding that we are asking for. Thank you.
Board members, as y'all know, Eric Kennedy has been with KSBA, has been our go-between. Well, I don't know if y'all know it, but October 27th is his last day with KSBA. So he'll be leaving, so they're going to be looking for somebody else. So if you get a chance, give him a call and wish him the best.
Thanks, Larry.
Next, I'd like to invite Ms. Webb to come forward and share with the board about a publication and what our plans are to help share information with our entire community.
Good evening. So Superintendent Radford and I have been discussing for quite a while, actually a couple of years, doing a publication to be mailed out to every home and every business in the county. Because as I'm sure you know, Approximately 30% of residents in the county have students in our school system, so that means 70% don't. So we need to be able to reach these people and let them know how we're spending their taxpayer dollars, make sure that they understand that what they're getting for their money, and go from there. So we have reached out to a couple of companies, gotten some quotes, and pleasantly surprised. I thought this was going to be a rather expensive venture, but it came in quite a bit lower than what I expected. So we will likely work with a company right here in Buckner, Turnkey Concepts, and he has provided us with some examples of other publications that he's mailed out, which look good. He also came up with kind of just like a mock-up of what our publication would look like, and we're looking at an 8-page publication. Now, don't look at like the visual of this because I'm not real happy with this. It will look different, but this kind of gives us a feel of, like an actual feel of what the paperweight will be and what it will look like. It comes flat like this in your mailbox. We had looked into getting some advertising for this as well. We found out that that didn't bring down the cost a whole lot, and we thought that this would be a cleaner look, a better way to disseminate our information, because we were looking at 4 pages of ads versus 8 pages of actual information. So it didn't bring the cost down that much, so we're kind of leaning towards not doing the advertising. But we're looking at this mailing out twice a year. Again, it's going to go to every home, every business in Oldham County, and I believe the total number on that is almost 24,000. And then the idea was also brought up, so I actually took this to the work group, the engagement work group that I'm leading, and got some great feedback, some great ideas of some content to put in here, and also the idea to give this to realtors. We could make some extra copies and have that for realtors, because extra copies aren't going to cost us that much at all. The mailing is a little bit more expensive than the actual cost of this. So just a really great resource. I can see something like this sitting in business lobbies for people to look through as they're sitting there. So that's our idea, and we're really excited about it and happy to entertain any questions.
Board members, questions?
Well, I know one of our former board members has been pushing something like this for ages. I'm glad to see it, and it might be an advantage, another advantage to us during times when we need money with the legislators to put articles in there about what it goes for,
right,
how to contact them, and give all the people better understanding of it. Then,
agreed. I mean, this is a great way we can get budget information out. I hadn't even thought about putting the legislative priorities in this particular newsletter, but I think the timing would be perfect for that. And I actually took that information that Dr. Shelton provided on the legislative priorities, and I made that into a really good-looking graphic. So that's something that we could throw in this publication as well. But we're really kind of gearing this toward that 70% that don't have the families or the children in the district. So it's not really so much for our current families, but I mean, it will contain a lot of information that they won't know about and should know about. And really, it's information. It will contain information that everybody in the county should know. Did y'all consider quarterly? Is it the cost? I mean, it's an option. I believe that we had thrown that around, but
and I think the other thing, that's a good question, Ms. Sheffer. I think the other piece is the time it takes for our staff to be able to put that together. So we thought let's do the fall and the spring, and let's try to measure some impact, right, and see what we might do from that.
Was 24,000 the cheapest quote you got, or?
No, 24,000 is the number of homes that it's going to. The cheapest quote that we have is a little bit less than 17,000.
Okay.
So yeah, it will go out to approximately 24,000 homes and businesses for a total cost of 17,000.
And that's for 2 times?
That's for just the fall. So if we do it again in the spring, it would be an additional 17,000.
And so working with Dr. Shelton, our surplus that we had as we wrapped up last year's budget and headed into this year's budget, we can cover that cost. The other thing I'd like to share with our board is I'd like to be able, now that we have a strategic plan, we have a logo, we have all of those things, then we could be able to ask others to be able to maybe support this work to help get our message out, but we need to have a good product to be able to illustrate the good work that's happening across our district to everyone in the community. We need to try to do that first, in my opinion.
And in that publication, you have things like looking for bus drivers, because a lot of retired people, like, would it have sections that are available for?
Absolutely. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, that's a great idea. I like it.
Is this coming up for a vote to spend the money, or is this something?
Just a report to take under advisement.
Thank you.
Ms. Webb, thank you. And as Ms. Webb, thank you for sharing and that update with the board. Next month, the board will hear an update on each of our work groups that's happening, as you heard her talk about the engagement work group and how we're continuing to move our district forward and utilize our strategic plan and create those actions. So you're going to hear more about that in November, as well as November. I anticipate being a big board meeting, a lot of information to cover.
Thank you. Mr. Williams, has anybody signed up for public expression? One person. Mr. Dotson, will you read our public expression policy, please, sir? Thank you.
The public and the news media are permitted to attend all open meetings of the board. No person may be required to give identification in order to attend the meeting. Exception, the chairperson may impose conditions upon attendance at a given meeting only if such conditions are required for the maintenance of the order. The board as a whole shall have the final decision as the appropriateness of all rulings. The public comment period each regular meeting shall include a public comment period of at least 15 minutes. Any board rules and policies regarding conduct during the board meeting shall apply during the public comment period. Individuals or groups should contact the office of superintendent prior to the next scheduled meeting in order to be considered for inclusion on the agenda. Persons wishing to address the board must first be recognized by the chairperson. Persons who wish to address an agenda item should seek recognition at the time the board considers the particular item. Persons who wish to address the board on a non-agenda item are asked to seek recognition from the chairperson as a presentation item on the agenda. Speakers, the chairperson may require the name and address of the speaker. The chairperson may rule on the relevance of the topic of the board agenda. The chairperson may also establish time limits for the speaker as may be required to maintain order and ensure expedient conduct of the board's business. The board as a whole shall have the final decision as the appropriateness of all rulings. Non-agenda issues, the board will not take official action on non-agenda issues introduced by the public in a meeting at which they are first introduced.
Okay. We have one person, 5 minutes. Does that work? Mr. Anderson, get up here. Come on down.
I'll see if I can be even briefer than last month. I think I can do it in a minute. How's that sound?
All right.
Yeah, I'm Blaine Anderson from LaGrange, Kentucky. And actually, I was glad I got here just in time to see a couple of my kids up here talking about their projects that they had been working on. They ride the bus with me, and you don't necessarily get to know or see some of the things that the kids are doing. So it was nice to see those kids and the recognition that they got. My comments are more informational for the large crowd that we have here tonight, or via social media, which is that we are 22 days away from our next election in November. And last year, as most of you know, a public forum was held for 3 school board seats, which was fairly well attended and had over 1,000 online views. A few of us, and believe it or not, when I say a few of us, from both the Republican and Democrat side, said, you know what, let's see if we can't put something together like this again, since we have a seat open in District 1, and let people get a chance to know the views of the 2 candidates that are running for this seat. Now, that being said, neither party will be the actual host of this forum. as this is a nonpartisan election. Appointed incumbent Allison Sheffer and her opponent Jared Barrett, they have both agreed to participate in a forum, and we are currently holding a date of Wednesday, November 1st, 7 o'clock at Fiscal Court in LaGrange to have this particular forum. That happens to be the night before early voting actually starts, so we're butting right up to the election. The final details on the format as well as the moderator are being worked out, but we do have the support of the Oldham era for this forum. So we just hope to see a good turnout from a more informed electorate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Action item, sir?
Yes, ma'am. Early graduation waiver and hardship, would just recommend to approve as presented.
Board members, any questions? Can I get a motion to approve? Made by Mrs. Clem, seconded by Mr. Dodson. All those in favor? And that's 5-0. And information items, sir?
Yes, ma'am, just information items as presented in your packet for board review.
All right. And with that, it is 6:50 and we are, oh, can I get a motion to adjourn? Sorry. Made by Mrs. Clem, seconded by Mrs. Sheffer. All those in favor? And that's 5-0, and now we're adjourning.